Hello, this is KYC News. We have provided you with relevant and reliable information for the day. First and foremost, we wish him good health and heartfelt desire. There are countless amazing natural structures on our globe. Everything, including the Grand Canyon and Mount Everest, speaks to how incredible the Earth may be, but pause for a moment and consider a few wonderful things. Skyscrapers, dams, and other structures have been constructed by people. Monuments, these buildings are a proof of our creativity and vision occasionally, despite our aspirations, surpasses our capacity, and the massive projects collapse. Whenever this occurs, the projects often failure that is magnificent, occasionally doing enormous amounts of damage, but invariably with enormous financial losses. Here are 5 massive undertakings that disastrously failed. The United States emerged from World War II, became well known for its numerous testing using nuclear weapons, several of these done around the Bikini Atoll island chain, resulting in a region that is still uninhabitable today. Nevertheless, many of these tests at the time involved the explosion radius passing through naval ships, although some of them did not sink, leaving a radioactive metal chunk that is floating. So many of them were dragged back to the San Francisco shipyard Hunters Point, where many of them were either disassembled or what was left of them was sunk. Many of the ship's cleaning solutions contained potentially dangerous substances. Recent years have seen radioactive waste and contaminated water in the city of San Francisco has been collaborating with the Navy Department to clean up the over $1 billion have been invested in the endeavor to develop the area and make it livable. Everything was going nicely, it seemed. However, in 2018, 2 Tetra Tech EC employees, the contractor in charge of radiation testing the soil, admitted to fabricating results. The controversy stopped work at the shipyard and sparked many, drawn-out inquiries. According to some of them, not all of the contaminated materials were removed as promised. This was one of a number of controversies that shook the entire project. The Navy just buried them. The absence of monitoring and responsibility almost resulted in, not to mention the harm done to the environment, hundreds of lives were put in danger. The Oroville Dam is located far up in Northern California. This enormous earthfill embankment dam, which provides flood control, water storage, and hydroelectric power generation, is a crucial component of the California State Water Project. For the most part, the history of the Oroville Dam is reliable. It is also the tallest dam in the whole United States. Throughout its existence, there have been a few minor setbacks, but nothing too significant. This all changed in February 2017. The 2017 California floods were the beginning of the issues. It caused the wettest winter in nearly a century in Northern California. Lake Oroville's water levels were immediately raised by persistent storms that quickly dumped heavy amounts of snow and rain. Rain caused damage to the Den's main spillway, so on February 7 it was shut down for inspection, enabling lake levels to keep increasing. On February 11, shortly after 8 in the morning, water rose over the emergency spillway for the first time since the dam was erected in 1968, despite officials' best efforts to lower the water levels with the limited use of the main spillway, to worsen the situation beginning of the erosion at the weir's base, moving considerably more quickly than anticipated. Officials discovered that an actual threat existed. Danger of the weir collapsing, flooding nearby areas by sending a wall of water downstream. This time on February 12 was when that 188,000 people in total had an order to leave issued. Shortly after this, I temporarily left the area. The urgent spillway was shut down for maintenance. Now that the main spillway was bearing the brunt of the water flow, it was getting worse. Severe damage, as well as forcing the hydroelectric plant to shut down, but in the end, there was no collapse, and the water levels gradually decreased, allowing for a full recovery. to be repaired in the upcoming months. Due to quick thinking and some good fortune, a much worse catastrophe was stopped. However, the overall expense of this event is expected to be around $1 billion. During the years 1924 to 1926, engineer William Mulholland was in charge of the St. Francis Dam's construction, a conical concrete gravity dam built to build a reservoir for storage for the city of Los Angeles. About 40 miles northwest of the city, it was a crucial component of the aqueduct water supply system. Water started to fill the reservoir once the dam was finished in 1926, but from seepage to flaws in the dam itself, issues started to appear almost immediately. Every month seems to bring a fresh obstacle. It all culminated in a horrible incident that happened on March 12, 1928, just before midnight. The dam experienced a disastrous failure. Although no eyewitnesses were still alive, it was concluded that the collapse wasn't gradual. About 12.4 million gallons of water were discharged into the San Francisco Canyon as the entire dam collapsed simultaneously, generating a 140-foot-tall wave. This wave was extremely strong. Everything in its path is destroyed. The wave finally arrived after just over 5.5 hours of travel. Was nearly 54 miles from its starting point when it washed bodies and debris into the Pacific Ocean. At this point, the wave was almost 2 miles wide and remained at a speed of about 6 miles per hour. 400 people died numerous times. According to investigations, the dam's failure was caused by the fact that it was constructed on a very shaky base from the start. A portion of the foundation was being eroded by seepage underneath. This ultimately resulted in failures in other locations throughout the construction, until the dam could no longer withstand the pressure created by the massive amounts of water. Early in the new millennium, the Eurozone economy was growing. In particular, Southern Europe was headed for a season of economic prosperity, which indicated growth. This expansion enabled construction projects to easily obtain funding. However, the financial crisis struck in the mid-2000s. Demand decreased for travel and investing in infrastructure, leaving some of the largest and most ambitious building projects. The airport in Spain's Ciudad Real was completely deserted, which allegedly cost more than €1 billion to build. The airport was initially intended to divert traffic from Madrid-Barajas Airport. However, there was a pressing issue: airport construction. At 150 miles to the south of Madrid, it is too remote from the capital. Few people wanted to make the long trip for a flight. This was a startling finding because at the time, there were numerous budget airlines were attempting to reduce expenses by providing for auxiliary airports. The CEO, though, was a little excessive. Remote enough to effectively draw folks. The pricey airport was only used in total. Open for 3 years in total. And noticed only 2 airlines flights, Ryanair and Vueling, with the latter's flights being government subsidized. Finally had to shut its doors. Currently, the enormous structure is still unoccupied, but continues to accrue expenses. It's deteriorated to the point of becoming unsafe, even requiring workers to paint golden crosses in abundance over the collapsing, so that pilots are aware that the airfield was deserted. Being an airport worth $1 billion that was closed in barely, it was one of the largest in 3 years. Historical financial failures of the nation. The United States had plans to build a space station in the 1980s. Plans were made for the world's largest particle collider, which would have been 20 times bigger than any accelerator ever built, to be built entirely in Texas. We used the word would have been because, in October of 1993, the Huge Hadron Collider was located at the CERN facility in Geneva, Switzerland. There isn't a single factor that explains why the project was cancelled. There were numerous things that originally caused it to fail. The project's cost roughly tripled from the original estimates in the midst of a national recession. The second crucial factor was the failure to find any foreign funding. and the political commitment to limiting government spending. Finally, because the project was nearly 20 times larger than anything physicists had ever managed before, conflicts between the management team of the accelerators and the military-industrial culture imposed by the U.S. Department of Energy resulted in seemingly endless audits and a general lack of trust. Presently, other from a few subterranean power plants and the extensive network of tunnels. Everything is vacant. Tex and Ellis County received the site initially. Until 2006, multiple attempts to sell the property were unsuccessful. It was claimed that there were intentions to turn the property into a data center when a private investment firm bought it. However, nothing had been constructed as of 2011. For comparison, the greatest particle accelerator that is currently in operation in Switzerland has an energy output of 14 trillion electron volts. The superconducting supercollider would have produced 40 trillion electron volts had it been put into service. Building nuclear reactors is always a tremendous undertaking. Not only does it require extensive planning and funding, but the execution of the actual construction needs to be 100% perfect. In 2008, a nuclear reactor was scheduled to be built. It is unknown what the project's future holds, but as of now, billions of dollars have been lost. To be constructed in South Carolina's Fairfield County, two enormous corporations: South Carolina Public Service, South Carolina Gas and Electric. Authorities made a total investment of $9 billion in the. They were given an estimate for the job that year that came to slightly about $10 billion for the construction of two nuclear reactors. It was going to be a particularly special build because the design called for the use of prefabricated components, enabling a kind of modular construction that started in 2013. However, because of production mistakes and inexperience, there were frequent delays from 2014 to 2017. The cost of the building had increased to $25 billion, and it was then realized that the initial estimate of $9.8 billion was considerably too low. Several of the parties involved filed for bankruptcy as a result of it. After several months, the initiative was shelved. As many people were paying some increased rates to cover the cost of construction, the utility companies filed lawsuits, and there were numerous settlements that exceeded $1 billion in damages. The economic losses and subsequent public outrage drastically changed the future of both utility companies. The sole Fortune 500 company with a South Carolina headquarters, SCANA, saw a sharp decline in its shares, marking the state's biggest commercial failure ever. This emphasizes the value of thorough estimates for everything that individuals are capable of, from hasty construction to inadequate financial planning. Communities as well as the companies involved may suffer as a result. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.